Hello!
And we're live!
We're back.
And we're back.
And it's sunny and lovely.
We're only 5 minutes late today.
Yay! Oh, awesome.
Yay.
Well, we're totally on this. Fantastic. Hello. That's Dawn away. Oh, no, she's back.
I've run away. Sorry,
Right.
the lights are good.
Laser focused. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the best success in teaching beginner contact jugglers and what we can do to make contact juggling easier to learn.
Yeah, exactly. We're coming at this with the whole new website and everything. We're really looking at new ways to get information across and questioning what's come before and what we can do in the future, how we can improve our teaching to get more people into contact.
It's actually one of our mandates for ballcontact.org. We'd like to rally the community together and start talking about what we can do to make sure that we all learn better, grow better, be better contact jugglers all in all, and what is the path to that.
So this kind of discussion will be great if you're just starting out and you're thinking, where can I go with this and what can I learn? But also, it's going to be really good if you're somewhat experienced and you're getting to that stage where you're passing your knowledge on to folks. People are coming up to you and saying, I'm really interested in this, I want to get into it. And you can start thinking, how can I put this information out there? So yeah, really, that's
and that's
these sites of it.
What we're doing on our YouTube channel as well. We are looking for people who are willing to teach tutorials, anything beginner, all of the warm-up stuff, anything that gets us into our body and ready to do contact juggling. If you have a tutorial that you want to teach, please share it with us. If there is someone out there, Adrian Lawrence, that would be great. Thank you. Yay. Can you share this on contactjuggling.org or Contact Juggling, the Facebook groups, just so that there is a wider audience? We can't share this from our page quite yet. So
no.
And it's not nice to put on our
Once again, we have one laptop, because you know it's hot out there and laptops are heavy to carry, and I walked here.
It's a beautiful day outside.
It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful walk. Parc La Fontaine. It's a really nice park. So, yeah, we're talking learning. And we've kind of been thinking a little bit about those very beginning stages.
Yeah.
Those very early, what are the first things if someone's never touched a ball, never experienced contact before? How do you then reach out and how do you express what you're doing?
Yeah, like my experience is you're in a park and you're juggling and they're like, oh, wow, how do you do that? And I'm like, how do I do that? And so I actually developed a little routine. I'll be releasing that video shortly, but it is basically a routine, buddy. And it's just like palm walking and getting people feeling it. I can't demonstrate it right here, right now, because we're kind of full in this room, but...
There's a video coming.
Yeah, exactly, but moving with the ball. Like I said last time, Drew showing us all how to be weirdos.
Yes,
but just, literally, feeling what it's like to be in the air with the ball and 2-point stuff where we can roll it in our hands and that kind of stuff. Basically stuff, like we've said, rewarding. Yeah,
this is... these ideas of what constitutes a good beginner technique or a beginner move. And yeah, we were looking at this thing. There's something which is rewarding in the short term.
I'm sorry.
That's an advanced move. The preparation required is substantial.
It really is, yeah.
But yeah, we want these things which are instantly rewarding to the person that's doing them. They're not feeling like this is, okay, in a few months this is going to create something. It's got to be, for your beginner, your opening kind of gambit with this, it has to be something which you can just grab and be like, yes, this...
You can do in a day.
Yeah, exactly. You can do in the 10 minutes of patience that the juggler in the park has to...
Yeah, that guy that's walking by, oh yeah, okay, I want to go do something else.
So, something like that walking hand to hand and moving it around. It's got that instant kind of reward. People can be playing with it straight away and doing their own kind of thing on it. But... it is still mechanically simple.
Right.
You take something even that maybe touch more complex than that, I'll say an Enigma, but I mean you can teach an Enigma in 30 seconds, 2 minutes at the very most. Unless someone's really stubbornly refusing to.
It used to be. I mean, like you have a few steps, like where you want to do the switching stuff. And, because there's some bilateral movement in.
Yes,
in
there's
Enigmas.
A little separation between the two hands.
Right.
Asymmetry.
Yeah. So you have to. Enigma is a little bit more advanced than palm walking, I would say. It's true. I would give Enigmas at least 5 minutes.
5 minutes? That's very generous.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to unpack in it, but at the same time, it's...
for a simple Enigma,
but it's still... It has that rewarding element. It's mechanically something which can be explained. Like, at least the explanation can take a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then it's achievable for someone to start out having never touched the ball before.
Yeah, you think so? Okay, yeah. Isolations were really heavily drawn upon with Drew and the ministry there back in 2005, and they were really going towards isolation movements, not palm isolations.
No, because that has a lot more subtlety, a lot more actual mechanical complexity to it than something.
Adrian says 7 minutes.
7 minutes at least for an Enigma. Yeah. In terms of actually, like, getting that into your brain, it does take that bit of extra time. But it's one of those things, once it's in there, it stays in there.
Right.
And, again, it has that reward. You can really play with it.
So Lars is asking, what about non-contact juggling related material? I have also been thinking about that, and I'm glad you bring it up because, for example, the bilateral movement warm-up, I'm going to upload that soon, where we have this kind of information where you have to do sort of complicated things with your body or get awareness in your body, which is missing from a lot of contact juggling. You're not going to get the juggler in the park, though, to do these complicated warm-ups. No,
it's a funny one, but it is really important as well. And if I'm teaching, I will almost always, and this isn't even a beginner thing, it's if I'm teaching any level, any time I introduce a new concept, it will always be put the ball down.
Right.
And we're going to talk about this. We're going to play with the shapes that we're going to be using. We're going to be playing with the... I do a whole lot of like playing with tension to start out with. So you start out, we're going to be as tense as possible. We're going to do all this movement as tense as possible. We're going to do all this movement as relaxed as possible. We're going to feel like the transitions between the two. Now we're going to take the ball. We're going to play with this idea as tense as possible, as relaxed as possible. Again, just because there's all of this important subtlety.
Yes.
Which, if you started out with that, you're not consciously focusing on it when you're trying to learn the move.
Right, and we were going to talk about it later, but visualization's huge.
Yes, yeah.
And like in my corporate workshop, I have a thing where I make everybody pretend to be the best juggler in the world, and they go and they pretend to be juggling 3 balls. And I really feel like it helps them juggle 3 balls later.
Did you... This is a bit tangential, but you know about the Superman poses thing?
No. Oh, yeah,
They did the big experiment. They got people to dress up in superhero costumes and then to take these tests and things. And you perform better if you do superhero poses for a few minutes beforehand. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Confidence, visualization, really getting into the spirit of a character. It really has a lot to do with your success. It's true.
Yeah. The thing... just to pull up on Lars's comments, what non-contact juggling do you teach in the run-up? It's important to think as well at this stage, if it's a complete beginner that you're approaching, or has approached you that this is going on with, you have to be very careful still to bring everything back in. I think
back into...
tying up loose ends in early workshops is so important. Because if it's your first time learning this stuff, you haven't quite got that the understanding of the complexity of it. It's different if you're more experienced and you're prepared to take like more out there workshops and then process it on your own.
Yeah.
You don't have the information to do that processing yet.
If you've already assumed you're a weirdo and that you can do this.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're aware of your own personal quirks and things. So it's really important when teaching, if you're going to do these bilateral exercises, to explain a little bit about why that's significant.
Sure.
And it's not just movement like this. It's not necessarily even just a flexibility thing. It's separating the brain and getting everything on side, and to really focus that back in tightly as well. It can be... And I'm really guilty of this, and it's something that I've really worked on, but of being quite oblique or esoteric in workshopping, and to just throw something out there because, yeah, this is going to be relevant eventually.
Sure.
But if you're a complete beginner, you've got no idea, and you've forgotten
No. And really, complete beginners really do want to learn the mechanics, because if they can physically do it, then it's more interesting to them, because then they feel capable, and that's part of the rewarding part, right? That it's achievable and rewarding.
And they can go into a nice box in your brain as well.
Yeah.
It's like, I've learned this technique, it exists in this space, and it's here.
I know 5 tricks.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's where my 3-ball is, for example.
Yeah.
It's like, I can do a shower, I can do Mill's Mess, I can put them together sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're still separate in my head, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, okay, which is interesting. So yeah, I mean, and that is part of the finding joy for beginners, is being like, I am a capable person, I can do these 5 things. And as jugglers, we know that we need to have that visualization. And so how do we balance these 2 different components in which we're doing the visualization, bilateral exercises, and the mechanics, and learning and feeling capable at the same time, and not just that I did these esoteric, weird theater exercises.
Because, anyone who's done like contemporary theatre or contemporary dance things, sometimes it'll be like, okay, maybe if I did that for a few years, it would start.
Yeah, maybe it'll look interesting,
fruits,
and it's like conceptual, and just, you start to just be, is this masturbatory? Is this self-indulgent? Or am I actually getting anywhere? And so that's, and that feeling of getting somewhere, I think, is actually really important.
Yeah. This is, again, super important for teaching and for learning, is your motivation to some degree, but that's a strange one, because some people are just incredibly self-motivating and they just want to do it because they want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that you're forming your path in some way that you're going to take.
Right, exactly, which is like we were talking about, finding your process, and what kind of process that you have as a person will really develop your process in learning as a juggler.
This is definitely one of the things with teaching, which is what really separates it from performing, for one, and from practicing. But it's also one of the subtleties of teaching, which makes it a really distinct thing. That's why some people are really good at it. It's that ability to, the person that you're interacting with, the person you're teaching, to be able to in some way change your process to fit them. And the other way around, like if you're someone who's learning, the ability to change the way you learn in some way, or to be prepared to... There's this idea that I always find the information, you have to sort of change the shape of it to fit into people's heads.
Yeah, right.
It's not always going to be a nice fit every time. So.
Yeah. When I first started teaching workshops, it was really terrible, because I'd just be like, "Oh, I learned this way," and then, but your class is not you, and each participant is going to have a different process and a different sort of way in, and developing something that is the most broad version way into their process is sort of kind of important to develop over time.
This is a really important thing that you can be actively doing if you're learning, if you're starting out, or if you're getting to that stage where you're thinking, I really like this, I want to get good at it. I'm ready to level up and go on to this next stage. Of starting to think about your path, but being discerning about your learning, being discerning about what information you're taking in. This is something you can be doing from day one. And it's this kind of immersion in the world of juggling. And this is, you're developing a critical eye. You're thinking about say you're watching videos, or you're going to conventions and you're seeing people actually performing. You can be critical. I mean, even if you're watching like a world quality performer, you can still be watching it with an eye of, maybe I don't like that about it. Maybe technically that's amazing, but there's something about it that I don't personally like.
That's interesting.
Or the other way around, you can be like, I love this. Why do I love this?
I remember going to my first convention and just being so overwhelmed with the fact that I had no idea this world existed.
You're training yourself in this. Your immersion's growing all the time. You can... I mean,
my first festival had Maxim Tomorrow in it. I'm like, oh my god, what is going on? Like...
well, that's even if you do get heavily into this world, you're going to be spoiled.
Yeah,
because you're going to be just associating with and seeing incredible people all the time.
Right.
But you can still use that to develop your own personal style and to still be critical. This thing, if you're learning a musical instrument, then one of the best things you can do is just listen to music. Not just in a passive way, but to really closely listen to what that particular musician's doing. And
Right.
the subtleties that are there, because it's not there by pure random chance.
Sure. But your location's going to really affect that. Like when I was writing about some beginner stuff today, if you were in London and you were learning contact juggling, you would have learned a lot of the body popping liquid style, versus if you were on the west coast of the USA, it would be balance theory, balance point, learning, ruling.
But the great thing for people learning now is we've got the internet, and you can immerse yourself like never before.
Sure.
There's...
You can't compete with one-on-one, though.
No. But
as much as I'm like all about ball contact and making this go, right? But
even then, even in one-on-one, you can still then go out and watch so much and find what you like and find what you don't like.
Yeah.
It's this, building this sort of critical, discerning view, but also applying it to yourself.
Right.
And understanding how you learn. And if you're a teacher, looking at the people who you're teaching.
Yes.
And being critical of how they learn. Well, critical is not in that you're criticising them.
Yeah.
Being critical as in being aware.
Right.
And questioning your teaching as well.
Is your information getting through?
Yeah, because it's very easy just to teach the same thing over and over and over again. But actually, maybe that's not as effective. Well, it's definitely not as effective as being conscious of your audience and being conscious of what you're doing in that respect.
Right. And for example, teachers that I struggle with are shaming teachers who are like, no, that's shit, do it again, no, that's, do it again. I need a lot of validation, like, go, you're doing great. And as much as it seems a bit pandering, my confidence will really get in the way of my ability to find joy and be rewarding, and I will stop learning stuff, or I'll just be in anger, and my brain will turn off. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and we have mentioned this kind of briefly in other discussions, but there is this idea that there's this definite thing that exists, that bad teaching can scare people off.
Yeah.
But bad teaching, someone's perfect thing that they need, can be seen as bad teaching by someone else.
Right, that's
like,
it.
If you're super good at motivating yourself. So this is quite interesting, because we have a very strong division of how we learn.
You and I.
We've been discussing this, which is why we could never learn together.
No, exactly.
So yeah, how you, as you were saying then, it has to be very sort of nurturing, the teaching.
Yeah.
It has to be very constructive.
Yay, go!
But I'm very much, when I personally am learning, I have to be frustrated. I have to, if I'm going to push through, I'm going to get myself to the point where I am physically failing, and it's a grind for me.
Yeah.
And I have to take it apart, and I have to look at all the little pieces and tinker with them until they work.
Right.
And it's, I become frustrated and say...
You were talking about the Basher and Swooper quote from, who was that from?
That's Kurt Vonnegut. From Timequake, but it's been a long time since I read it. But this idea of the different ways of writing, whether you're a swooper who goes through and writes a whole novel at once and then goes back and edits it through, or whether you're a basher who can write 3 words in a sentence and then think, this isn't right, so I've got to go back and take it to pieces. And
right.
You're still getting to the same place.
Yeah.
You're still applying a critical eye to it, but you're coming at it from completely different angles.
Right, and so you're a basher, and I'm a swooper.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely true.
Just go through and write the whole thing and be like, did that work? No, let me just try that again.
Yeah, exactly.
But be soft and gentle with myself, but you just bash the wall, hit it.
Very much. But that's a thing that you can use as well. Both of these are techniques which it's good to be aware of, and to know that there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong approach.
Right.
It's what works for you.
Whatever gets the job done. Because if I was a basher, I'd give up and be like, I'm never doing this again.
Anger is an energy. That's what John Lydon told me.
It is an energy that's sure works for you, I guess.
But to know that as well, that...
What would happen if you tried a swooping technique?
Well, I can. I do draw upon that.
Okay.
But
It
it's...
just feels a bit too flighty, or...
No, not at all. Like, I have so much time for it. But for actually adding to my vocabulary of moves or techniques, I would never be able to learn anything through that approach.
Right.
I would never be able to say, I'm going to learn head rolls. I'm going to just see what happens. Me learning head rolls was... I would say 2 months, I think it was in the end.
Right.
Because I was like, I'm going to learn these.
Oh, okay.
And it was 2 months of everywhere I went, stall 5 seconds, stall 5 seconds, stall 5 seconds, stall 5 seconds.
Oh, that's interesting.
And thinking about why it wasn't working when it didn't work, and getting frustrated because it wasn't working even though I thought I understood it. And it's like, no, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's important not to get lost in that as well, though, because...
I just have to open the door. I'm getting a little warm, but you keep talking about the next thing. I'll be right back.
Well, yeah, there's that idea that I personally enjoy that. That's, even though it's frustrating, there's a certain intrinsic joy in pushing yourself through those barriers and getting stuck on something and then finding yourself out on the other side. So yeah, it's not as though if you found yourself in that position, you don't necessarily need to think, oh, I'm terrible at this, I'm terrible at learning, I'm never going to learn anything. You just need to realise that there are further stages once you manage to get through. And it's incredibly rewarding when you get there.
Bang! The fan's not going to work, but at least I have the door open. I was going to boil there. Welcome to summer!
Yeah, it turns out it does get warm here.
Oh gosh. Like, pregnancy is a little bit warm. I'm wearing a person.
Contact person. So yeah, so being discerning with your learning, being discerning with your personal style as well. This is hugely important. I have this thing, so in that same idea of immersion. Good way of learning, immerse yourself in lots of videos, lots of people who are doing this.
Right.
Things which are tangentially connected but interest you.
Copying different styles,
Yeah.
different ideas.
Trying different styles, stealing ideas from different places, borrowing ideas.
Tricks. Yeah. I am a little bit wary of plagiarism. I know the juggling world has this, like, let's share everything. I'm totally a big fan of sharing everything. I mean, I've made dozens of YouTube videos of all of my work. I think it's a really good idea, but the line is when you take a routine, a full routine, and copy it, or you were saying, like, costuming and songs and... Yeah,
there's a point which we can't... I mean, that would be a whole other discussion to get into.
Certainly.
But there's a point where copying and stealing goes beyond and turns into actual plagiarism and a bad thing.
Yeah, you have to copy, and you have to take things from other people in order to learn, otherwise...
I'm saying
start from the
stealing
beginning.
there with little bunny ears, because it's at those first stages, it's not stealing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're filing everything away and you're...
Exactly, just feeling it in your body and being like, oh, that's what that looks like. Does it feel like that? How does that feel? Totally comparing yourself and taking from other people's material, but eventually developing your own expression of it.
Yeah, and there's nothing to be said that you can't go out there and try and do everything entirely on your own. That is a path that exists.
Well, I kind of did that. It sucks.
Yeah,
that's why I'm doing this work now.
I would be interested to know if anyone followed that route and is really positive about it.
Right, exactly.
Because, I mean, it works. I mean, you have got a very unique style which is kind of yours as well.
If you talk to anybody in the beginning years in the 90s for contact juggling, in the early 2000s, before the internet or anything like that, like Remy Laracini, Emmanuel from Italy, like, they all did that.
Yes, yeah.
That was because it was like, oh, I saw this one guy do it on the street once and then never heard of it again, and I had to develop an entire style, which is really interesting because they each have their own unique expressions.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting how they developed. But they are really determined people.
Yeah. The number of people that would have bounced off, who could have contributed, who could have had a voice without that information available.
Without any teachers.
Yeah.
It's just the attrition rate of actual contact jugglers is so high.
Yes.
And that's actually the problem. That's what we want to sort of solve, is trying to develop more contact jugglers, and how do we get less attrition and more people being able to stick with us.
Yeah. It's still this strange thing where if you're talking to even other jugglers who will be like, oh, I love contact, but it's so hard to learn. And that's a really weird thing to hear.
I blame us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's our fault.
Yeah,
we haven't developed any pedagogy that actually teaches anyone.
Us from 10 years ago, because there's good teaching out there, but it's not being spread around. And...
Right, I mean, this is small communities or very, very small units of people who are teaching, and we're all kind of disparate in our own, one person in each county, especially in North America. I mean, you Europeans have a really good way because there's so many people in such a short distance.
So nice to hear Europeans, because that's not going to last much longer.
Oh, ouch!
It's funny, I looked up and saw the words "no soul."
No soul.
But yeah,
that's back to the technical tech versus flow.
Yeah, but yeah, to kind of tying this back into our topic. So yeah, with this immersion idea, this is a really good way to, and it's a good thing if you're teaching as well. A very, very useful thing to do. After that first class, send people links to some really good videos. Like, that's just a really lovely thing that I do. Like, have a little standby playlist of lots of different styles. This is what I do. In fact, I think I've kind of got one up on Ball Contact. A little bit like the history again in little bunny ears. A little potted history of what's come before. So if someone's interested, hey, Drew's here. Hey, Drew. So after that first lesson, you can send these videos, and they can be like, "Ooh, here's Teku doing his stuff."
Oh, so you can get everybody's email, and then you just be like, "Hey, everybody, here's some inspiration."
Yeah, and I tend to do that so that when they come back to the next lesson, you can be like, "Oh, so what did you like out of that? What spoke to you there?" And then you've got a nice shorthand way of so they don't need to be, "Oh, I like this move and I like this move." They go, "Oh, this guy's style is really interesting. Like her body rolling stuff that she's doing, I want to get into that." Or this dancey, wiggly stuff, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about it as a playlist, but I definitely do that in conversation when I'm teaching my students, and we say, "Oh yeah, this new video was released," and then we talk about what the benefits or detriments of the video was and how they like it, and that's...
So it's a really nice thing you can start developing, like, straight away, that so immersion in that world,
that critical
and
eye,
being critical and thinking, why do I like this, why do I not like this? That's a long way. So do we want to talk a bit about the actual kind of nuts and bolts of the teaching side?
Of the teaching side and developing, like... So yeah, I mean, we were talking about technical prowess, and at the beginning there where we were saying that technical... developing technical skill is important as much as it is to develop sort of expressions and stuff, but I had a conversation with Drew this week a little bit about deliberate practice, and so that's where that visualization sort of meets technical practice, in which you have the visualization of exactly what you're trying to accomplish, and you attempt it in a deliberate, conscious, sort of meditative way with a full awareness of yourself.
This is really good, because there's absolutely no debate about this, really. This is just like nailed down. We know that if you put in, say, 50 minutes of deliberate practice every day, you're going to get further than doing an hour's sort of in the same amount of times, not really focused practice once a day. Building yourself a routine of deliberate practice is going to make you improve.
I agree, and it also sort of stops me from having that first 15 minutes of me being like, "Oh, I suck, when I'm trying to just like nail something, but I'm not deliberate about it. If I'm deliberate and I go from a really broken down, like, let's start at a very like I go when I start juggling, and I actually just throw a ball and I do just throwing a ball for 1 minute.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Just like, where does that arc? How is that landing in my hand? Where is that feeling? Like, what is the weight of the ball? Asking myself very specific questions about exactly what that is. And I return to that every day. I mean, I can juggle 5 balls, but I return to throwing.
It's totally. I mean,
time.
that's why Stefan Singh's workshops all have those one ball, like starting off so simple, and just this one little concept will get a little bit more complicated, but always returning to this very simple idea.
That's exactly where that was inspired by. In fact, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so when I do the same thing, I start out with lots of throws in the same way.
Yeah.
Very simple, just working on rhythm and getting comfortable and bigger movements.
What's funny is I don't do it with rolling.
Well, this is the thing. So I was going to say, so I do scales in the same way that like a musician would warm up with their scales.
Right.
By which I mean, maybe I could do some kind of video about it. I should get around to it. But just
I'll write that down.
making, I will practice my rolls, say just arm rolls getting bigger each time. So doing, but focusing on doing clean rolls.
Right.
We're not going to talk too much about form in this discussion. Form's a really interesting thing to talk about.
A little bit about it at the end, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But focusing on my form and focusing on my speed control and balance, and to building, getting bigger each time as well. I find if I do that, if I spend like maximum 10 minutes doing it, sometimes if I'm feeling particularly like I need to warm up, I will spend a longer time doing it. But the difference it makes is crazy.
My warm-up got up to 45 minutes when I was in trance. I mean, that's if you're not working. It's a really different thing. But yeah, because you can be just like, okay, where's my body? Where's my arm? And then really breaking out down every motion in your body is really sort of important if you want to go that far.
Yeah, I do rolling and body balancing as the mental warm-up. Yeah, exactly. And this is it. This is what I'm calling these scales, because it just makes everything that comes later. You're using these techniques, but then you can really expand from there. We're apparently cutting in and out every second, making it difficult to follow anything. Is anyone else having problems following? Leave a little message if it's... Because on our side... for Josh, we will post this on YouTube and ballcontact.org once it's uploaded. So it's been recording, so it will definitely be a full video.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you're having problems, I think our connection's going okay.
Yeah.
But we will. We'll post it up on Facebook. We'll post the link to the YouTube video once it's up, which will be good.
Drew finds it okay. Hi, Billy.
So yeah. Hopefully, it'll by this evening. If you want to watch it in its entirety, it will be up there.
Yeah.
And you can skip through bits.
So yeah,
I'm talking.
I mean, and talking about that deliberate practice, one of the biggest parts of that is actually being critical and being like, is that what I wanted?
Yeah.
Is that what I, or is it a little bit? Am I correcting? Am I moving? Am I stable, balanced? Like, is it easy? Is it, am I focused? Because every day is going to be different. You're not going to be focused the same way every day. If you're having a bad day and your mind's like spinning, I mean, you'll be able to do it for maybe 5 seconds, but there's some days where you can do it for 5 minutes and you have a better focus.
And the kind of perfect storm of having your brain and your body both completely active and in their perfect condition, that's kind of a rare thing to get into.
Yeah.
Luckily, like there are warm-up techniques you can use to shortcut that.
Right.
I say shortcut, like to actually take that time to work into it. But you have to be prepared that sometimes it's not going to be the perfect practice session, and to be able to run with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be encouraged by it, and not to
do it even if you're tired. It's like tired practice is still better than no practice.
Again, that's another thing which has been studied and has been shown is you're not, again, as long as you're focused, you are still contributing to your overall learning.
Do you know that if you practice in the same room every time that you will have a better practice than if you have it in like different spaces? Like there's studies particularly about university students, if they study in the room that they take the test in, then they do better on the test. They do 10% better.
But this is an interesting thing. If we extrapolate that, because I read this exact same thing. but from a different point of view, because there's this idea, I've forgotten my word that I would use to describe this, because I do talk about it. Interference. Interference is a really interesting thing, because that's true and proven. But the problem is, if you're practicing in your bedroom all the time, and then you go to the juggling club and you can't do the same thing, or you want to go up on stage and you've only been in your rehearsal room, suddenly it becomes an issue. Interference, this is an interesting thing.
Or habituation is another word.
Well, no, the interference is a slightly different thing.
Okay.
This is saying that actually doing your 5-ball over the bed for 15 minutes, then going outside and doing 5-ball for 15 minutes, you've actually made your learning more efficient, because your brain's had to reset itself and then jump back in.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's these ideas that you learn in really good 10-minute blocks, and then after that it starts to drop off. So what you do is you do something for 10 minutes, and then you completely change to something else for 10 minutes, and then you're back. So practice your chest rolls for 10 minutes.
You're saying my ADD has a purpose?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So chest rolls for 10 minutes, and then foot catches for 10 minutes. And then chest rolls for 10 minutes, and then head rolls for 10 minutes.
Right.
This is that interference learning, because each time your brain is resetting and having to start that learning process again. And it's just a way of boosting it every time.
It's almost like the scales that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because habituation is something I use in my performance. If I can get access to the stage in advance, I do my meditation and my warm-up on the stage for as long as I possibly can, and so that I can be habituated to the sounds and smells and temperature and everything of that stage for the moment. And if I am habituated, then I have a much better session, a much better performance, in which, when the audience is there and the nerves start to come up, I'm not getting used to the lighting and the nerves and the audience at the same time.
That's a huge thing with stage performance. It's street performance as well. It's like once you've got yourself a corner or something, you're used to it and you know the environment there.
I once walked out onto a street and Yuki was like, "Wow, you own that piece of street." And it's so funny because I spent 4 years just on that one corner, and that is my favorite place in the world to perform,
Yeah.
And I do the best juggling there.
Yeah, habituation, it's definitely a thing.
And it helps you with the refinement and stuff, with that.
But then you can play with that, and you can use those interference techniques to kind of jumpstart your learning as well.
Right.
And taking breaks and taking a 10-minute break.
Interference is really interesting. I've never known about that.
There's lots. There's interesting stuff written about it, and it's luckily for us, sports science is a thing which people actually put money into because people like sports.
Yay!
Which means on the
juggling a sport?
ancillary effects. Well, no, but it's using all the same techniques.
Yeah.
So we can just steal all the money that they've put into, all the learning that they've put in, and all the money they've put in.
This sounds like a really good place to put in that thing about warm up. Warm up your body, because if you do not warm up, you might injure yourself. You can hurt your neck with head rolls. You can hurt your back with matrix rolls. I hurt my sciatic nerve by doing too many leg catches on one side.
We've just got a question from Drew. Yeah. We'll jump straight back into that. My reference for that, Drew's saying, is it 10 minutes? Drew's going for 20 attempts, which is about one song or 3 to 5 minutes. My reference is a TED Talk, which we can, I don't know. Oh, maybe it's a TEDx talk. I don't know.
We can link to
which I can try and find again. And it was a neuroscientist. You've possibly seen a neuroscientist who's teamed up with a juggler. They took the juggling club of, I think it was an Israeli university.
Oh, really? I've never seen this.
And it's quite cool. So what they did, here's a cool thing for mapping this. So they mapped this. They were doing 3-ball cascade with LEDs on the hands and doing long exposure photography. So you can see the pattern that the hands are making. And they came up with this 10-minute thing. But then it was a TED Talk, so it's probably a massively simplified from what the actual truth was.
Some hippies doing science.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really cool way of mapping it, though, because it's like, first day shot, and it's like the hands are all over the place, and the balls are lit up as well, so they're all on the floor.
Oh, that's
and then by 2 months later, it's like the perfect figure of 8 pattern that you want, and they can actually show it
All
with
right,
photography.
you're gonna have to link to that in the comments when we're done.
Yeah. So that's my reference for that, and I believe the thing is there's different studies in different areas. They do studies with like university students and their actual like retaining knowledge and how that works over certain amounts of time.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean the actual number probably doesn't really matter because every study is going to come up with a different thing.
Yeah,
but
sure.
the idea is these short bursts are better than trying to marathon it.
If we could only replicate things, actually,
Yeah,
it's way
but I
more
think
interesting to develop a first theory. But
to be honest, if all brains were just identical, that'd be so much better. It's nice and
yeah.
uniform.
Yeah.
But no, to the very important point that I literally just jumped us away from.
Oh, we're talking about the
idea
the
that,
warming up.
yeah,
It's a physical practice, and this is a sport, and you have to make sure that you actually like physically warm up, not just mentally. Like we need mental warm ups; they're great, but like stretch your neck. And otherwise, yeah. I mean, that was really all I have to say about that. Is just to be aware of that
well,
there is possibility of injury.
If you are learning, if you've come into this completely afresh, like I did. I mean, I really didn't care for sports or anything like that. I didn't really do anything along those lines.
Didn't do anything.
I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Apart from rugby. Rugby's fun. But yeah, you have to bear in mind that contact juggling is a physical activity, and to be aware that if you're doing stuff,
it's a little bit more gentle than rugby, though.
Yeah,
a little.
But at the same time, like if you've ever like multi-ball and things, multi-ball suddenly, if you're learning quickly and you're going through, and you're not just going one ball for a few months and then two ball for a few months. You're really like going quickly with acrylics. That's a lot of weight you're suddenly putting in your hands.
That's true. That's just like 2 pounds.
Carpal tunnel and muscle strain and things.
I get it in my back. Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah,
and yeah, exactly. People have put themselves out of juggling for a while because they've managed to wreck their body. Because you need to be aware that you are putting a physical strain on.
Right.
If you're learning head rolls, your neck doesn't like to be this forehead still here. Your body really doesn't like that.
No.
You need to compensate and you need to stretch and be prepared for it because, yeah, you can do bad things.
Apparently Greg Maldonado had carpal tunnel because of the 3-ball separated palm spinning. Yeah.
Drew has Google food the TED Talk, and it is a TEDx talk, so take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, those TEDx people.
It's worth a watch, but if you've done a little bit of thinking about the learning process, you've probably already heard a lot of the theory in it, but it's a nice visual representation of that theory.
Okay.
That TEDx talk, so we'll copy that for later's. It's definitely worth a watch, but again.
So we kind of jumped a little around. We were talking a little bit about technical practice, and we want to learn technical things because it is rewarding. But it is also just like if you learn like technique, it ends up having no soul.
Yeah.
And it has no soul for yourself, and it has no visual for anybody else that you're showing it to.
Yeah.
You can be like, look at this thing I do, but people are like, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, which, I mean, some people will get entirely a lot of joy out of that, but at the same time, one of the comments that stuck with me the most
all
was...
of the jugglers?
Yeah, exactly.
The entire juggling?
All of the juggling But there was a moment that Ed, who we'll hopefully be chatting to soon, Ed said to me, it's like, oh, what you're doing, it's good, it's interesting, but you're thinking like a juggler.
Right.
And it's that thing of being able to separate the pure technique. This move is going to branch into possibly one of these two moves, and then if I do that move, I could do one of these because I've learnt the transitions.
Yeah.
That's one way to start learning.
Right.
But at the same time, you're not going to be really expressing too much.
But you need that. It's
exactly.
the foundation, and I mean the sequencing and the expression sort of come a little bit later as you sort of develop your practice.
Yeah, you need to be able to in some way switch off that little voice inside.
Yeah.
And this is where the more kind of flow approaches, I guess, come into this as well, of being able to kind of quiet that little voice down and be a bit more expressive.
Right, and I mean, we kind of discerned a little earlier about the difference between technical flow, which is like developing sequences and tricks upon tricks in which you can do, okay, here's 5 tricks, I'm going to do this one first, this one next, this one next.
The flow chart approach.
And like, getting the flow chart approach. I like that idea. And then sort of the more flow idea, which is sort of conceptual, image-based, what is this showing on stage, what am I representing as a archetype in the world, the costuming, the am I a ballerina today, am I fully immersed, am I present, sort of that theatrical approach, which is a little bit more contemporary these days.
Yeah, or, I mean, even just to simplify that down to being happy to play.
Yay! That's my favourite.
But that's the thing, and it's something which I think is massive, and especially if I'm teaching illusion style, so much of that is pure play.
Right.
Because it's like, well, I mean, you can dress it up in different terms, and it's like, oh, if you do this particular sequence of tension and relaxation, it will look like a robot. But actually, what you're saying is,
I'm a robot.
We're pretending to be robots, or we're pretending to be underwater, or pretending to be puppets.
That's way more fun.
And we're playing. And when you incorporate that play into it, you find all this stuff that maybe you weren't approaching before.
Right.
And yeah, I think being prepared to, when you need to keep that deliberate practice, but also being able to say, this is playtime now.
Well,
I've done my scales and now I'm going to have fun with it.
That's really interesting because some people are like, you need to make a rule and then follow that rule, and that's how you learn, because you develop a specific technique with that rule, and that's what deliberate practice is. But making a game is the same thing, where it's like, we are robots, but we are robots is still a rule.
Yeah, exactly. You set... this is how a lot of really interesting creative stuff happens, because you set a little framework around yourself, and then you push on the frame as much as you can, and you discover all these new things.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you just... this is that discerning eye thing again. When you just look at all of Contact in its entirety, it's overwhelming.
Right.
It's like, think of any skill. It's like, okay, you want to learn skateboarding. Look at all of this stuff you can do.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Well, no, exactly. You have to break it down. You don't have a choice.
Yeah. Just to make sense of that world. But yeah, being prepared to let go of some of those innovations and just have the playful side is super, super important. I
really have always wanted to see Nick do his I'm making a cup of tea as a robot routine. He did tell me that he had one of those, and I really want to see this. It's not to do with Contact at all, but apparently he can make a really good tea as a robot.
Yeah. That's a good... I mean, that was a classic thing with the head stall as well.
Oh yeah, doing everything with a head stall. Yeah,
you'll notice as well if there's like a news story or like a kind of feel-good piece about someone maybe with who's like become blind or something like that. Making a sandwich is always the go-to thing. That's you have your level of domestic control back. So if you make a sandwich with a head stall, you know that you have overcome a particular...
That's what we're going to teach the beginners today?
Exactly.
Things that we always say to people is practice all of the time and do things while you're making sandwiches, do things while you're... so yeah, even if you don't have a ball in your hand, like, apply your new technique to your sandwich. I remember when I used to dance at raves, we used to pretend to make sandwiches in like a liquid dance thing and just like make sandwiches. It's like so ridiculous, but it was hilarious and fun, and it was a game, and it was still practicing all the time, and like integrating it into your everyday life is a huge idea. It doesn't even need to be with a ball. Yes,
That's, I mean, touching there on something else that's really interesting of things we always say to people.
Right.
This is a really interesting thing there are particular things, particular sayings, particular expressions, which are always given to new people.
Right.
We always say, people who've been doing Contact for a little while always say the same things. And they say things like, practice all the time, but slow down, for example. Every first video will have slow down comments on there. Just to be aware, if you are like teaching this stuff, to be prepared to kind of question some of your teaching as well.
Right.
Because this is what we're always doing as well. It's like, why are we saying the things we're saying? Why are we teaching this? So when you say to someone, slow down, think about what that means. Because it's not necessarily just make the ball move slower. Does it mean that? Does it mean do fewer things in the space of time?
I like to have I have a game that I play, which is I'm in a video, and so it's like fast forward, rewind, slow motion, play, and and I just use these controls and try and go through. And what does it mean to be fast? And then what does it mean to be slow motion? And
extrapolating, that's really interesting. Doing like workshopy stuff with Ed, this was the whole thing. Like, it kind of broke my brain for a little while of being, okay, this 5 seconds of motion is on a tape. That's when it starts getting, because frame by frame skipping, but then all the different things that can be played with that,
right,
of looping it. And then distorting as it loops over time.
Oh, distortion I hadn't considered.
Skipping frames because maybe a frame's gone missing. Yeah, that's when it starts getting really
That
exciting.
starts to get really weird. I mean, mine was a little bit more simple and just like trying to go fast. But, like I take videos of myself and I'm like, I feel so slow. I look at how slow I'm going, and then I look at the video and I'm like, wow, that's like normal speed, because I'm a hyper speed contact juggler, right? Like, I learned listening to Happy Hardcore at 180 beats per minute and being like, boom, 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 like, yeah, let's do all the contact juggling as fast as possible. And like, I've really had to teach myself to slow down, and in doing so, I'm actually now about average speed.
Yeah.
And so this is really interesting.
But it's funny because it's a thing that everyone says, slow down.
Yeah.
But there's so much to it. There's so much to unpack and pull out of that, and to be aware that, and to be aware as someone who's starting out, you make your first video and you post it out there and someone goes, yeah, it's nice, you could slow it down. Just to think about what that means. Think about how you can slow down and how it can be internalized. Can you be slow in your body? Can you convince people that you're being slow?
Right.
There's so much to it.
Well, that's it. And what I found, there is one video I did slow motion in the first 30-day challenge I did in 2013 and 14, and I actually in the video could see myself slow, but it was because I had to literally be like molasses. My whole body had to feel like the slowest thing possible. Like I couldn't possibly go any slower. And then I reached about where Jordan is now. Yeah,
exactly. And there's a really good example of the fact that this stuff can be done slow. Even relatively technical body rolling. I mean, pretty technical body rolling can be done
his bridge rolls.
so slowly. There's always space, and it can always... But he himself will be pushing himself to go slower and slower still.
Right.
I mean, there's always space to
slow down.
To slow it right down. That's important. I mean, this might seem obvious,
but how?
If you've been doing it. No, I mean, just the idea. Why are we saying that? Why are we saying slow down? Mm-hmm. Because it shows control.
Right.
And if you're practicing control. Even if you're not too worried about perfect form or anything like that, you still want a level of control over the prop. So if you can do it super, super slowly, you'll be able to do it quick as well.
Yes.
Because the slow is where the really important control comes from.
Eventually you want to do both, right? You want to have, like, a dancer has slow motions in their dance, and then they speed up, and then they go back to slow, and that actually makes a more complete piece. Yeah, I mean, again, going back to stuff... But it slows the hard part. Things that you teach which don't involve the ball, that's the other thing which I would do in workshopping, is fast and slow. And how that's different to tense and relaxed as well, because it is different. Because very, very fast doesn't necessarily mean very tense. Right. In fact, it doesn't mean that. And being able to move quickly without being tense, is really difficult. And the thing about being slow is actually it develops equal momentum around your body, which actually really adds to this illusion of the ball's floating. If you can get a chest roll that doesn't speed up when it rolls back down your arm, then it starts to, like... because we're equal. Whoa! Yeah, there it goes. Exactly. And so common to have that, like, vroom. Where do you get that? How do you get that slower? Yeah, well, I think this is... Hey, look, Jordan's here. Speaking of Jordan. Speaking of slowing down. I think this is going to be a thing which we will be able to have a lot of people contributing to, but this idea of what is good form, we've come
far enough now in Contact in how much we've learned. This is slightly digressing a little bit, but
no, it's actually right at the end here. We're right about where we are because we only have 5 minutes left.
Oh, awesome.
Oh.
But yeah, this we can now be discussing what makes good form. Hey, that's preach from Mike. I love it. Well, this is it. We are now at the stage where we can look at all of this information that's out there and start pulling out what's making the perfect examples, the good form examples,
right.
and how we can aspire to that, how we can play with that and use it. And this is something that, we're ready to start contributing on now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's not something that you're going to arrive at that very first day when you're walking by us in a park picking up a contact ball, but this is helpful for developing your critical eye.
Yeah. And
discerning and developing your visualization and all of the other stuff, the deliberate practice that we talked about in the last 55 minutes. But what is it to have good form? And this could be a really long discussion, but we do have 4 quick points here. The longest path, which is in our example on the pinky side, sort of taking the longest route around the body. The most control, slow or equal momentum at least. Yeah,
exactly. That consistent speed and momentum.
Consistent speed and momentum and in control at all times and not just being like, woo, okay. And no bumps.
Yeah.
No like...
basically, good form. And when you're starting out, it's not going to matter as much in those first few weeks. But to have a notion of this is super important. And it is that mastery, that virtuosity, comes from control.
Right.
And it's all those things we discussed. So consistent speed and the speed that you want it to be. So, it doesn't have to be complete turtle slow.
Right.
But because maybe good form doesn't involve that. Maybe for the ideal illusionary effect, or the ideal effect it wants to be.
Yanizo is so good.
Yeah.
Slow like Yanizo, man.
Yeah,
I'm totally into that.
Exactly. But so this is, so the longest path means that you've got the most control at the furthest extreme.
Right.
Which means it's going to take longer for it to complete, which means you've got more control over it. So we're at the stage now, and it's really cool that we can start thinking about this, about some of the more conceptual stuff behind what we do.
Yeah, exactly. And we could have an entire conversation about what is good form, but I think these 4 points really start to illustrate a good example of what you should be looking for when you are watching videos and seeing other examples of contact jugglers, and what you should be taking from others' inspiration to put inside your own body.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's such an important thing. Again, it's a thing which isn't really spoken about, so we've really talked about in juggling, but that immersion is, I think, really important.
Obsessions.
I
do recommend the obsession technique.
Yeah, exactly. And being prepared to get lost in something, and even if eventually you decide, actually, that style is not really for me, but being prepared to let yourself go into that direction it's good to have an open mind about all these different styles.
Yay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think that's us shouting at you.
Yay! Yeah, exactly. I've got a small baby who's totally freaking out here. This might be our last chat for a little while, due to this giant belly I have. But I think Tom's going to continue.
Yeah, we're going to be having some good, interesting discussion with interesting people. And getting people lined up to talk about interesting things.
We do have tutorials scheduled for the next at least month.
Yeah, there's still going to be stuff
being posted. But Tom's going to take over. If you want to take over and do a talk live for ballcontact.org and have any discussion points you want to talk about, please participate. This is a community adventure, not just Tom and I show.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many people with really interesting things. But at the same time, I'm happy to be the incentive. If you think, I need to do this, but I need you to poke, then I'll happily do that. And
Tom's going to work with you, and I'll probably be back at some point or another. I'm not sure how this whole motherhood thing's going to go yet.
It's going to be just really easy, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. That's what everyone says. Totally easy. And then I'm going to make a monster juggler! or like Stefan's child won't like juggling at all and never ever follow in my footsteps.
Yes, I think you're going to have a little actuary or a notary maybe.
No, I was like an Anthony Gatto, I thought.
Oh, okay,
yeah, we're going to go for that.
Yeah.
Yay!
I'm going to be enjoying all the free time that I have.
When I don't make you make work. Awesome. Thanks very much for watching, everybody.
Yay! Thank you, everyone.
And have a good day.
Bye. Love you. Bye.